Our guest of honor, our Chief Secretary, Mrs. Carrie Lamb, distinguished speakers, conference participants, and all the attendees here today, a very big welcome to everybody. The conference today is on betterment of the city, primarily Hong Kong, but we have speakers from several countries, and we hope to learn from their own experience and wisdom. In Hong Kong, we have achieved an enormous amount over the past 40 years. We've accommodated several million people in new housing, planned and constructed 9 new towns, and built one of the best rail systems in the world, among many other things. But in having to carefully manage our city, like many other modern cities, we too often over-engineer and in some cases perhaps over-regulate. The notion that cities should be designed rather than merely zoned or engineered is central to good urbanism. And the efficiency of urban design is necessary in achieving real city betterment. Streets, for example, are not merely to optimize auto capacity and speed, but to enhance walkability, pedestrian connectivity, stimulation and safety. Channelizing streams and rivers requires recognition of recreational, ecological, and aesthetic values. Urban places must fulfill social needs, but also underscore local identity. They should establish meeting points, diversity, and sense of memory. And we need urban renewal that's regenerative in terms of both form and spirit. And we must ensure that our waterfronts, including, of course, Hong Kong's magnificent harbour front, becomes a real resource for the city. Above all, we need to recognize that the city is not a machine for living. It's a civic framework for the community. And when we look at some of the great cities that have been with us, sometimes for hundreds of years, we sometimes scratch our heads and wonder how they got built with such wondrous features, or at least how they managed to adapt to the modern age. And we often tend to use the word organic, or perhaps we should say misuse the word organic, because for most things that we observe in cities, there is a reason why things have happened in the way they have. And as we've turned away from some of the stark principles of modernism to postmodernism and new urbanism, in most world cities, I think, over the past 20 or 30 years, I notice increasing support across a very wide front for not just looking forwards, but also backwards to historical examples for inspiration and ideas in city planning and design, to make them more human and geared to the community, but also imbued with increased densities and compactness. This is likely to be the future of smart cities everywhere, cities that can be used by everyone. There is, in fact, a rising interest throughout Asia and most of the Western world too, for living in or near places that are rich in social interaction, and Hong Kong is certainly one of those cities. Most of us, as practicing professionals, have grown up with the modernist principles of specialization, standardization, and mass production. And we have seen each aspect of city design become progressively more isolated and specialized. Architects, planners, civil engineers, traffic engineers, environmental scientists, economists, landscape designers, and surveyors. And most of these are now matched by parallel departments in government. This means that things might well work in a functional way, and Hong Kong is unarguably a very well-managed city. But cities need more than a one-size-fits-all mentality that can quite easily lead to homogenization of our community. And that's where urban design comes in. And it's why our urban design members are drawn from a wide area of disciplines, professionals from many backgrounds, who wish to achieve the objectives that we've set out in the back of our brochure today, to apply the principles of diversity, conservation, and the human scale, and to ensure as far as possible that communities are mixed, they're inclusive, and they're integrated. The urban design discipline is not just there to promote urban design excellence, but to assist with education and research, to create a platform for information sharing on urban issues, to strengthen communication between all participants in the planning and development process, to promote community values related to urban design, and to provide advice as and when it's needed. And I hope our conference today will introduce ideas on how we might think about bringing these about to best effect. So I'd like to thank our speakers. Some of them have come a long way to be here, in particular our keynote speaker, Sir Terry Farrell, who I'm delighted to welcome, someone who embodies so many of the urban design attributes and activities that I've just been mentioning: architect, planner, urban thinker, and government advisor. And Rocco Yim, an old friend and one of the most, I think, articulate commentators on Hong Kong urbanism. And of course, to all our other speakers, moderators, and panelists, thank you. I would also like to thank again Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Secretary of the HKSAR government, for finding time in a very busy schedule to introduce our conference. Perhaps not many people here know that in her previous role as Secretary for Development, Carrie was extremely encouraging and proactive in the formulation of our institute. In fact, the Development Bureau was the major sponsor of our first conference in 2012. So it's very nice to welcome you back today, Carrie. And it perhaps shows how far we've come in a relatively short space of time, when I can say that this time we didn't have to turn to government for funding. It has all come most generously from private sources and, of course, principally the Hong Kong Jockey Club, where we're sitting right now. So I would like to thank them and our other sponsors, Henderson Land Group, Hong Kong Land, Nanfeng Group, the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong, Chinachem Group, Hong Kong International Airport Authority, Ronald Lew and Partners, and Urbis Limited. So may I wish everyone an enjoyable day and a successful conference. And I'll be back at the end of the day to attempt the summary of what's been said. Thank you very much.